before we have our exam on Friday, we are going to look at two different works that use 12-tone technique. The first work is going to be the Schoenberg String Quartet number 4. The other work is a song by Webern, and that will be in another video. Now, the reason we're looking at two different works is because Schoenberg and Webern have very different styles and techniques in their composing, and it's important to understand that just because both composers use 12-tone doesn't mean they write the same way. They write very, very differently. On the exam, I will give you a mystery piece, one you've never seen, and I will ask you to argue whether you feel that it is more closely aligned with Schoenberg's style of composition or with Webern's. So be sure when we're looking at it, don't just be thinking like, oh, it's 12-tone. Be thinking like, oh, what are some of the other things going on in the music, or how is the 12-tone used that will make me better understand whether this is Schoenberg style or more of Webern style. Now, here's the thing, is before we get into the Schoenberg, I did want to talk about the homework that you just had, where it was the 2 pages of Berg's lyric suite, 12-tone, and it had some questions. And I wanted to address a couple of quick things. So, of course, you all remember filling all of this out. You might have noticed that there was something fancy going on with this. In fact, would everybody take a look at P0? Now look at R6. If you look at P0 and R6, they are identical. Take a look at I0 and look at RI6. You'll notice that both of those are identical. The composer Alban Berg, for his lyric suite, used a symmetrical row. So this is what that means. He took his 12-tone row, and if you take that 12-tone row and you transpose it up a tritone and then do it backwards, it becomes the same thing. So, which is very cool. So if we take F going this way and we raise it to tritone and then do it backwards, it's the same. And so it turns out that even though usually in 12-tone music there are 48 different versions of the row, right? We can have 12 primes, we can have 12 inversions, 12 retrogrades, and 12 retrograde inversions. This particular row that Berg used has only 24 because it's symmetrical. Since it's if you transpose it and do it backwards, it becomes the same thing. Only 24 versions exist. I will also point out that Berg sort of left a tonal feature in his row. He sort of groups it with his white key notes on the left and the black key notes on the right, kind of like making it diatonic. So if you look at the first 6 notes, it looks like it could be like those all sound pretty together. It doesn't sound like 12-tone when you hear the first 6 notes because it's part of a major scale. The second 6 notes, same thing. By themselves, they sound pretty tonal. And of course, as soon as you transpose the whole thing up, you move it up, if you move the whole thing up a half step, suddenly all of these natural notes are over here because all the sharp notes went up 1, and all the sharp notes are over here. Now, not all of them, but you can see that he was kind of playing some games with moving different notes around in different spots. That's a subject for a more advanced theory class that I won't be teaching, but if you go to grad school, you might be learning about hexachord combinatoriality and things like that. Let's go ahead and get to Schoenberg, which is on page 180. Please go ahead and listen to this. And one of the things that I want you to understand about this piece is that there is a lot of traditional writing in its process. The 12 tone, of course, is not traditional, and the harmonies are not traditional. But almost every other aspect of this piece is traditional. I want, at some point listen to it again. You'll listen to the fact that there is generally a sense of melody and accompaniment, right? So that means foreground, background. We have sort of like a homophonic texture, melody and accompaniment. You will also notice that there's a sense of phrase, that you feel like you can hear beginnings and endings of phrases. Of course, that becomes very difficult because Schoenberg didn't have harmonic goals because he was using 12 tone. You don't have cadences in the same way. He has to do other things to make it sound like the beginning and ending of a phrase. So maybe a big dynamic change, right? It ends on a forte, and then there's a rest, and then it starts soft, right? We know that that's a new phrase because it ended big and then starts soft again. Or maybe a new voice comes in. When the new voice comes in, we can hear that that's a new phrase starting. So we hear phrases, we hear traditional texture. What about the rhythms? If you listen to this and pay attention to the rhythms are pretty straightforward. We get a lot of quarter notes, we get eighth notes, we get some dotted rhythms, things like that, but nothing that's really strange. If we think back to when we were looking at Stravinsky or Bartók, and they had all these changing meters and a lot more complexity in their use of rhythm. This rhythm is very, very classical sounding. It almost feels like Beethoven or something like that. So the rhythm is very traditional, the texture, the idea of phrases, let's take a look now at the 12 tone. And if you like, you can use colored pencils. All right. Now, I think we already did this 12 tone as part of another lesson. Aha, there it is. So we will use this, and if you don't have it for some reason, it's right here. You can pause it and jot it down. But in order to do 12 tone analysis, you need to have a matrix. If you don't have a matrix, you're not going to be able to find any of the rows. So here we have the matrix for the Schoenberg 4th string quartet, and you will need this to do the analysis. It looks like I got lazy and didn't finish all the I's. So let me do that right now. So D, E flat, E, F, there's G, A flat, A natural, I'm already goofing it up. Oh, what's wrong? Brain not working. Okay. Sorry about that. I put A7. Good Lord. Okay, that's better. Man, I've lost my 12 tone game. I got to get back in it. All right, so we know that this starts with P0 because it starts D, C sharp, A, B flat, and check it out. There's P0, D, C sharp, A, B flat. So we've got our starting notes. Now, and we also went ahead and labeled them. I'm going to use, let's use blue. All right, so anytime we see a P0, we can use the color blue for that. Now, before we go on to the next thing, I just want to remind you that we have that funny looking H, that is Hauptstimme. And then over here we have the funny looking N, that's our Nebenstimme, showing us primary and secondary foreground melodic material. Now, what about the rest of these parts? So here's the thing, is this is the kind of thing you would never figure out, so I'm just going to show it to you. But what Schoenberg does is he decided he wanted to be thinking so much in terms of foreground and background coming together in a homophonic way in his texture, that he actually does the same thing with his 12-tone row. And I'll show you what I mean. So here we have the row, and here we have P0. So look at this. This goes D, C sharp, A, and then of course it continued over here with the next notes. But then, look at the next three notes, B flat, F, E flat. Here's B flat, that's number 4. F is down here, number 5, and then E flat, but he has spelled it as D sharp, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the next three notes are E, C, A flat. There's E, 7, C, 8, A flat, 9, and then G, F sharp, B. There's G in the viola, 10, 11, 12. So it looks like he has the row here with all the notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So he's thinking in terms of melody and accompaniment, also using the 12 notes. So he's kind of double dipped, right? He's using 1, 2, 3 as part of the row melodically, but then he uses 1, 2, 3 as part of the row with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like that. Let's keep going. Here we have notes 4, 5, 6, and check it out. Here is 1, 2, 3 there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's try D, C sharp, A, B flat, F, E flat, E, C, A flat, G, F sharp, B natural. So this one he does 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. There's another P0 right here. I think you can figure out what's probably going to happen on this next one. It'll go 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? That's sort of what he's doing. Here he did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Here we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. All right, so 7, 8, 9 was C, A flat, E, C, A flat, E, C, A flat, then G, F sharp, B, G, F sharp, B, and then 1, 2, 3 is D, C sharp, A, D, C sharp, A, and then B flat, F, E flat, E flat, F, E flat. And if we keep going just like this, we will find the next one right here. And we could go through and do all the numbers, and we get another P0. So you might be asking, like, isn't this cheating? So my answer is, I don't know if it's cheating, but he's clearly come up with a system that works for him. This is his, he invented this. He was thinking in terms of this way for this type of composition. Now, let's keep going. And if you listen, you'll notice that it seems like this becomes the new primary voice. The second violin takes over. Will you go ahead and take a moment and see if you can figure out what row the second violin is playing? And feel free to pause, because I'm going to show you in a minute. Okay, did you figure it out? It starts G, A flat, C, B. And if you look, I5, G, A flat, C, B. So the second violin takes over at the end of measure 6 with an I5. So we will need a new color. How about red? And here are the notes. So we've got our notes and our I5. And if we go through and we do the other notes, we will, the other voices, we will see it's the same kind of thing. 1, 2, 3 is by itself, but when it gets to 4, 5, 6, we get 1, 2, 3 here at G. That's tenor clef, by the way, A flat. That's alto clef. 1, 2, 3. Here we get another 1, 2, 3. Tenor clef, G, A flat, C. He's sort of revoiced it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with 1, 2, 3. And then when we get 7, 8, 9, we get 4, 5, 6 in the other voices. 4, 5, 6. And then 7, 8, 9 should be over here. 7, F, A, C sharp. And then 10, 11, 12. Here is 10, 11, and then of course there's 12. Now, this is pretty tricky and complex. And if you're a student and you've never looked at something like this before, I mean, you would never be able to find all this. And I can assure you that on the exam, I am not going to find a really tricky one where you have to find all these weird parts of the row. Like, I'm just trying to show you how Schoenberg actually came up with a whole tonal language to be able to find all these different things going on. Now, let's take a look at this next Hauptstimme in the first violin. It starts with B, F sharp, G, A flat. Do we have one of the rows that starts B, F sharp, G, A flat? I found it. B, F sharp, G, A flat. This is R0. And I will use green. Oh, this is a crappy green. Let's see if I can find a better green. Much better. All right. I like this green. It's better because it matches my eyes. So we have B, F sharp, G. So 1, 2, 3. A flat, C, E. 4, 5, 6. And then on to page 181. And let's see, we left off. So flat, F, B flat, 7, 8, 9, and then A, C sharp, D, 10, 11, 12. And what's interesting is that these last few notes look like if we were in the key of D minor, or D major, so, T, Do, right? A, C sharp, D. And I wonder if he thought about that as, like, even though it's not tonal, if he thought about D as some kind of important unifier note or goal note, since it starts at the very beginning with D, and then here when we've gotten to measure 14 with this triple forte, we have that. So let's see, this is our green. So going back over here, and of course, if we go and look at all of the other stuff that goes with R0, I think we will find 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 4, 5, 6 is A flat, C, E, A flat, C, 4, 5, 6, A flat, C, E, E flat, F, B flat, E flat, F, B flat, and then A, C sharp, D. A, C sharp, or D flat. So you can again see that he's doing the same kind of trick where he's got 1, 2, 3, and then he's got all of the harmonies of the rest of the row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that kind of thing. Now, we could go through a lot more of the Schoenberg string quartet and find more of that stuff, but I think you get the idea. I do want to point out on the next page, for example, here we get some imitation, and all the voices are coming in on I5, imitating each other. Right? Any good German composer has voices imitating each other, and Schoenberg certainly fits the bill. And we could go through and find even more rows and things like that. My hope, though, is that you're like, oh, I can see how you can sort of make 12-tone work for you. It doesn't have to be that when you write it, you always are stuck with the same notes, right? You can find different ways of using them and putting it to work. On the next video, we're going to look at Weber, and we're going to see an entirely different piece.